Hey, what's up, YouTube? I was watching Gun Website's video that they interviewed the Hoff, and wanted to say first and foremost that was a very cool video. I liked that little interview. I liked his whole mindset on the thing, and I thought that's very cool that he goes down to Mexico to help build houses and whatnot, and the whole Arizona mission that he does down there with helping out the border patrol and helping just doing his civic, I think, a kind of civic duty is almost, as G. Webb's put it, almost like a neighborhood watch. I thought that was a very interesting concept, and one that interests me very much. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about a comment that someone put in the video that G. Webb's responded to. In the comment, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I don't know who put it, he said that if the United States or states, their own states, were to legalize marijuana, none of this would be a problem, and the cartels would just go away, go back, do whatever. Okay, this is a long video, I think, coming, but I think it needs to be said. So, first and foremost, I don't think that's true. At least in my opinion, even if marijuana was legalized, it would take quite a long time before the cartels would stop trying to make money off of that. And if they did cease to operate for drugs, or marijuana, they just move into, cocaine, which they're already doing, and all the other drugs, and they just focus more on the illegal immigration, the trafficking of humans, whatnot, so on and so forth. So it's not going to get rid of the cartels in totality. It would reduce them, but ultimately they'd still be around. They'd still be as vicious as they are, and whatever. That's not the main point of this, though. I want to talk about what a prohibition does to a society. And I'm going to use the actual alcohol prohibition that was repealed in 1933. Now, for some of you who don't know, let's talk about the effects of prohibition to our beer. So after prohibition was ended in 1933, the beers that were still around were call them American-style lagers. They were, many argue that they're not very flavorful, they're watered down, so on and so forth. It took all the way into the Carter administration before American smaller groups and micropubs could begin brewing their own beer again. So it took quite a long time from the moment of prohibition, or the removal of prohibition, to the point that the common man can produce and operate their own brew stations for beer. And at that time, in the 1970s and then into the 80s, it took quite a while before these microbrews or micropubs began to take on prominence during the yuppies of Reagan, going from their imported beer into these craft brew, microbrews. It took quite a while. And we're still now, I'd say, within the last, call it decade, we've really seen the prominence and the style and the craft of these microbrews really take hold, the quality of which has just gone up significantly. Not to say that the microbrews back in the 80s and the 90s weren't good, but the domain appeal that there exists now for it has really gone up. So, I don't know, that was a remake, Kit Car Cobra, Ford Cobra, great car. So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is, if you go and look at Prohibition was removed in 1933, and then it took to the 70s, some, 50 or less than 50 years, or 50 some odd years, to allow the individual citizens or small groups of citizens to brew their own beer. That's quite a while to wait to be able to, make your own beer, so on and so forth, whatever. And then from that point, it took a while before the prominence of the microbrew took hold. It found its way, and then you see these, very, a captivated market now with companies like Stone and Sierra Nevada and all the companies down here, like the brewery. God, the brewery in Anaheim, man, it was a great place. Okay, so what does that mean in regards to marijuana? Well, I think, and I've yet to hear anybody really prove me wrong, that if they were to just legalize it, that would allow anyone and their mom to just up and start growing these marijuana plants. Far from it, actually. I think you'd see large businesses enter into that market, because those large businesses have the assets and the connections, really, with the government to set up these large grow establishments. Because, let's be honest, beer and alcohol is a highly regulated field, including tobacco. Tobacco is also a highly regulated field that has a lot of government involvement. The same would be true if marijuana was legalized. And it would be many, you know what, I'm not taking that, I'm going the road back home. It would take many years before the consumer would be allowed access, or the right, if you will, to get the kinds of marijuana that people are getting now. Now, look, I don't smoke marijuana. I don't really have any interest in it, but I know acquaintances that, you know, they talk about these kind of things, and I've had these discussions with people. And, you know, one argument I heard was that, you know, it's going to be great when they can walk into a drugstore and buy some, what they call it, Marlboro Highs instead of Marlboro Lights or Marlboro Reds or whatever. And, you know, I asked him, I was like, well, you know, are you a big Bud Light drinker? No. Well, what do you drink? Oh, I like Blue Moon, and I like, you know, Heineken, and I like... whatever, Stella Artois, insert your beer here. Now those are not craft brews, but those are beers that are more expensive, and up until recently, give it a couple decades or so, didn't really have any prominence in this country. It took quite a while for those types of beer to take hold, not just in the interest of one taste buds, but the market to sustain people actually bringing that stuff to market. So what you would see, again, this is just my opinion, is you're going to see, you know, Marlboro Highs, but they'd be more the equivalent of the American-style clear lager, thought to be watered down, thought to have no character marijuana. They would be, you know, 30% marijuana and 70% tobacco, because that's how the large companies can offset starting to move into marijuana once it's legalized by the United States. They've got to offset it with something that they already sell, right? Because again, that market may not be there, or it might be too hard of a market for some people to get into, or that the consumer base doesn't want, or is scared even by the product. Think about it, when marijuana goes legal, if it ever does, you're going to have a situation where the government comes in and goes, hey, look, you know, I don't want them having the strongest, most, as I understand, plants that get all their, you know, what am I looking for? Spliced plants that take traits of one and traits from another and have a lineage and, you know, certain kinds of blah, blah, blah. You think that the government isn't going to regulate stuff like that? Of course they are. They're not going to allow certain traits. They're not going to allow certain things. And if they do, they're going to be taxed heavily. See, okay, let's go back a couple more steps. For the government to get everything they can out of the taxes if they were to legalize marijuana, they're going to have to understand and itemize certain things. So a high quality of marijuana, you know, from whatever they know or whatever, will have to have a higher tax. Well, until they're ready logistically to claim taxes for those things and understand the value, they got to nix it. Meaning nobody is going to make money off of it. It's going to be a shitty strain of whatever it is, and it's going to be the you know, approved government strain. Heck, they might even sanction only some people to be the ones that can provide and sell the seeds, just like they do for tobacco and whatever else in the past. You know, tobacco seed was a very difficult seed to get when the settlers first came to the United States, because it was such a controlled thing. Well, controlled, and the families of tobacco didn't want anybody growing it. So you got to think about it a little deeper than the government is just going to open the doors and everybody's going to walk in and they're going to be, you know, breathing the free air, as it were, and really just, you know, enjoy themselves and be growing like crazy and whatever. So, to tie it back to the cartels, there are people right now who really like getting the strongest, crazy, whatever kind of marijuana they can get their hands on, for whatever reason. You know, you hear the term hairs or whatever it is. and they're looking for certain types of things, and those are what they want. Okay, that's not going to be on the menu in the drugstore when the government decides it's going to open the doors to everybody to legalize marijuana. Again, my opinion. They're going to have a particular kind of marijuana that's sold probably by a big company that's probably going to be considered pretty weak as far as most people's standards are. Most people who smoke standards are. And so what's going to happen? Those people that smoke are still going to have to contact their dealer. They're still going to have to try and get access to those strains and whatever types of plants that they like or that has that extra kick, right? So the cartels aren't really going away at that point. If anything, the cartels are going to be more, there's going to be more work for the cartels, because what happens when they legalize marijuana and, you know, Joe random father and Joe random mother start, you know, pulling out their Marlboro highs, never smoked a day in their life, and they say, hey, you know, this really has something for me. I'm really interested in this product. I really enjoy it. And then they start talking to their friends, and now everybody's drinking, you know, Bud Lights and smoking their Marlboro highs. And about 4 months after that, everybody goes, you know what? God, I got this stuff down from Mexico, or, you know, whatever. And you should check this stuff out. It's way better. It's kind of like, to draw another parallel to this, look at Cuban cigars. Okay, Cuban cigars, in my mind, aren't all they're cracked up to be. There are some amazing Cuban cigars. I will say that first and foremost. But I've been smoking cigars now for over a decade. And I gotta tell you, every Cuban cigar I've had, I could find a, you know, legal cigar in America from a smoke shop down the street, a reputable smoke shop down the street, cigar shop down the street, for probably less than half the price of the Cuban alternative. But it doesn't mean it doesn't stop people from making Cuban cigars. And in fact, Cuban cigars are one of the most actively counterfeit items in this world today. So what does that tell you? The legality of the thing really doesn't matter. And to Americans who are told they can't have that particular type of product, they will bend over backwards to get them. You know, there's a whole market of people that you can contact in Canada and China that will take the cigars, make them look like they're in a toy box or some other item, and then ship them to you, just to get around laws or whatever. And again, I'm not saying I do this. I just know about this from my investigations that I've done in the past. So, do me a favor, and when you make statements like, all of California's tax problems will be gone if they were to just legalize marijuana, or the cartels would disappear if they were to just legalize marijuana, take a second and think about what you're really saying. Because what it sounds like you're saying is you're making an extremely oversimplified, ooh, look at that, no dude, you can't just cut back. You're making an oversimplified remark on something that is complex and nuanced and isn't just as easy as what you guys talk about when you're in the garage with your buddies. It's going to be more complicated than that, if at all. And even if it does become legal, I think that for average smoker, or actually I take that back, I think that once marijuana becomes legal to the people who smoke marijuana now, not just the guys who smoke it every day and are, you know, religious about it. I'm not referring to them, although they would be affected the most. I'm talking about people who occasionally do it, casually, whatever. I think that it's actually going to become tougher for them to get the marijuana that they like. Sure, they'll be able to get whatever, you know, the government cheese version of marijuana is going to be, the sanctioned product, the, again, Bud Light of marijuana. But when it comes time that they want to actually, you know, go back and smoke what they had smoked before, that market is going to become even more policed than it had been in the past. Because marijuana, okay, so here's another comment. So when people say, you know, God, we got to stop arresting these people that are just, you know, selling marijuana, it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal. You're right, it's not a big deal. But you think it's going to be a bigger deal once the government says, hey, you know, we allow Marlboro to sell these things, and we take a tax of that. We take a portion of their income from that product. You think they're going to let anybody walk in and undercut that product by selling, the plants that they grow in their backyard, the illegal way of getting marijuana? No, man. They're going to police it even harder. They're going to make the small growers and the dealers and, yes, the cartel people that bring drugs over, they're going to demonize them in the market, because now they're threatening a food supply chain of money, taxes, back into the government. They have to demonize it, right? Because if they can't win, they're not going to be able to win a war just on policing. The only way they can do it is they demonize it. And how do they do that? Well, they walk up and they say, look, have we not given you the right for you to smoke marijuana? Have you not, benefited from this ability to walk into your drugstore and get Marlboro Greens or Highs or whatever the hell it's called? So if you're so, benefited by this freedom, why are you still, patroning the local dealer that is in bed with the cartels that are killing people with automatic machine guns, that we don't know how they got these automatic machine guns, not to throw something back at Eric Holder, but, look, it's a food supply line to the government. It will become an item that they are in bed with because they need those taxes. They will become engrossed and addicted to those taxes. And so what do? They demonize the dealers and the people that are outside the law. So again, the people that will be inside the law will be the large lobbying forces that are feeding the government via their products' taxes, which again, there's nothing wrong with this. This is capitalism. And the people who will be outside in the cold are all the people who are screaming right now for the legalization of the marijuana. Now, this is just my opinion, as are all my videos, just my opinion, but I think that I'm using historical cues and examples to explain why I come up with these ideas. I would love more discussion on this because I am fascinated by it. It is the prohibition of my time, and I get to watch it from outside, actually, because I'm not affected by it. I have no interest in using marijuana. I'm very happy with my now wonderful craft beers and alcohol, and my cigars and pipes. So anyway, I'm looking forward to some comments and maybe even some video responses to what I'm talking about. All right, take it easy, guys.